Hi, I'm Scarlett McKenzie, CPDT-KA, and the Chair for the Canadian Association of Professional Dog Trainers. Welcome to the Q&A session for Becoming a Dog Trainer in Canada. All right, I'd like to introduce my fellow board members. Carla, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Oh, you just have to unmute yourself first.
Thank you. I'm Carla Simon, joining from Calgary. And in my professional life, I do scent detection and service dog training, and I'm a director at large for CAPDT. Hi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla. Megan, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Megan. I am also in Calgary. I'm Megan Stanley, and I own Dogma Training here in Calgary. We have 2 facilities where we do group classes, private training, and day school, and we also actually have an academy for dog trainers. I'm sitting as vice chair for CAPDT right now as well. Pretty excited.
Thank you so much. Great. Okay, so I am going to do a little bit of a screen share and very short presentation, and then we can go into questions. And it's very informal, you guys. So if you have questions, maybe follow-up stuff, that's why it's a Zoom call, so it's very interactive. So if you can just wait till the end of the presentation, and then it's interactive from there. So here we go. I'm just going to screen share. All right. Okay, so at this point, I cannot see the chat, so I'm just going to ask Carla to let me know if there's anything in the chat that we need to be aware of. All right, so here we go for becoming a dog trainer in Canada. Who, what, when, where, and how. Becoming a dog trainer, it has many paths. If you ask a dog trainer how they got started, their story will be different than anyone else's. Everyone comes from a different background, has different goals, and enjoys different aspects of training. Monetary expectations. There are a few different ways that you can go about being a professional dog trainer. You could work for someone else, meaning that you are an employee or a trainer for another facility. That's absolutely a great way to get into it, or it might even be the best fit for you because then you don't have overhead and you work for someone else, the template is there for you, and you're just doing the training. Can be a really great option for a lot of people. Or the other way to go would be to work for yourself. So that would be starting your own dog training business and then, having to get your own clients, train those clients, do the paperwork, do the invoicing, do the taxes, all of that stuff. There is more paperwork involved, but you do have more control over your schedule. You have more control over what clients you decide to accept or not accept. You have control over your over what you want to train versus what your employer decides they want you to train. Okay. We also advise that you diversify your income stream because while, yes, absolutely, a lot of trainers specialize in a certain aspect of training, especially when you're getting started, you're going to have to be able to do, basic obedience, puppy stuff, maybe even some pet sitting, just so that you can get a diversity of income streams because you might not have enough dog training classes lined up in order for it to be a full-time wage. So it just depends on how much money and time you're looking to spend on your dog training career. And other options might be to continue working at another job and doing dog training on evenings and weekends. In fact, that's how I suggest that you get started, is that you spend a minimum of 2 years gaining experience and a client list so that you see year over year what types of clients you're getting, what service area is, what your most popular programs are, and then you'll also know what your expected income will be if you've got a good 2-year base to see that history. You also want to make connections because here's the thing about dog training. People will only train with someone that they trust. So word of mouth is extremely important. You might get repeat clients. You know, I've had clients who come to me for dog training with one dog, and then 4 or 5 years later, they come back and they say, oh, we've adopted another dog, or we now have a puppy, and they come through the program again. So it's really great to make those connections, those one-on-one connections with your clientele so that they become your advertisers. So how do you become a dog trainer in the first place? There are many different schools, and here is, you know, kind of an open secret is that there is no legislated definition of what you require in order to be a dog trainer. So that means that we have to create that definition ourselves so that we have a high quality of services that we provide, and that is what the CAPDT is striving to do, is to create a standard, to create expectations of what a trainer should know and the methods that they should use, and as well as the methods that they shouldn't be using. But that is not in Canadian law right now, so we have to do it as a voluntary step to maintaining the industry at a high standard. So the schools, what schools would you pick? How do you pick? There's so many, right? So we do have a chart available on the website. CAPDT.ca has a PDF that you can download, which has a very long list of both Canadian and international schools with all kinds of different aspects that might interest you personally. So that is available to you guys. And I also have the link to the Canadian schools that we recommend in the chat box. So if you just scroll up to, I think, the second thing that's in the chat box, like right after hello, then there's a link. That is a list of Canadian schools for dog training that the CAPDT feels is a very good place to get your online or in-person education. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. You could do it online, you could do it in person, you could do a hybrid of the two, depending on what the school offers. There are also apprenticeships, which we definitely recommend. The only downside is it's really hard to find a mentor. A lot of people want mentors, but there aren't a lot of people looking to do mentorships. So if you come across a dog trainer that you really admire, someone who's local, absolutely approach them and say, hey, I'd love to learn more about it, and could I maybe, you know, be an assistant or observe. You want to make the relationship beneficial for them as well as for you, so that you're not just taking without giving back. Make sure that you're offering something before asking for something. Also, please be aware, if you are going to do an apprenticeship, that it is very standard that the person you apprentice with will want to ensure that you are not going to be poaching their clients once you are fully trained. So there are contracts in place where you will not be permitted to train within a certain radius for a certain period of time. So it might be, you know, 200-kilometer radius for 2 to 5 years or something like that. So just be aware of that. Ask them that before you get started, because you certainly don't want to have to wait 5 years to start your career. Or perhaps you might want to do your apprenticeship in a different city so that when you go back home, you are ready to get set up there. So just keep that in mind, that there will be a no compete clause in that contract. There are a lot of schools that have, well, they have the academic and the practical aspect to it. So the proportions might be different depending on each school. Some of them require that you send in video proof, some that you have to do in person, some are apprenticeship type based things. So yeah, like I said, just depending on the school, some of it is purely academic and some of it includes a practical as well. And then the other thing to consider is, what method is that school going to teach you? Because it is completely legal to use the old school methods of choke chains and e-collars. It's legal. But from the perspective of the CAPDT, We don't encourage that as the way to train, and we are science-based. And so we would like to have you keep in mind when you choose a school that is using modern science-based methods, and get you set up on the right foot, rather than choosing a school that maybe is using old-fashioned dog training or old school methods. So it's very important to check out what methods they will be using. So connections, super important. Word of mouth from clients. So how do you get them to talk about you? Well, you can't really force them to tell other people about you. So really the only way to do that is to be authentic, to be genuine, to be friendly and welcoming. Make yourself available to answer questions, have lots of social media activity so that it's easy for them to share and tell other people that they work with about you, tell their neighbors, tell their friends. You basically just want to make it easy for them, but that's about all you can do. You can't incentivize them in any way, because you do want that recommendation to be genuine. You can foster working relationships and alliances. So, go talk to your local groomers and maybe a dog walking business or a doggy daycare, and see if there's something that you can offer to them so that they get something beneficial from a relationship with you, and then you can also build an alliance and a relationship with them. As I said earlier, always make sure you're offering something before you ask for something. So working relationships could be maybe that you offer to sweep the grooming room at the end of the day so that they talk to you while you're cleaning up, and then they get to know you, and they might know who to recommend you to. Or maybe it's more of a working relationship where they're teaching you something and you perhaps work for them in return. Volunteerism is another way to get people to know you, get to know who you are as a trainer, and then recommend you. So volunteering, there's no shortage of shelters, rescues, any places where you can volunteer. You're going to meet a lot of people, and you want to make a good impression, because they're going to be the people recommending you to their clients or their adopters, whoever they face towards the public. And remember, it's not so much who you know, but who knows you, okay? Because they need to remember your name. They need to remember you fondly. That's the important part. Remember how I said they only hire people that they trust, because their dog is important to them. It's a living being. They really need to make sure that it's going to be with someone that they trust and that they like. And don't take it personally if you're not the right trainer for them, because everyone's got a different style, right? Like I tend to really like to keep things light and fun, and I do puppy classes and basic obedience, and I really focus on relationship building. Can I get a really straight sit from a dog? Sure, I could, but 95% of my clients are not interested in a straight sit. They want their dog to be happy and well adjusted and not jump on the guests when they come over. So a straight sit is not important to them. So that's perfect. That's my clientele. There are other clients who really, really, really want to compete in rally obedience, in which case you do have to focus on a straight sit and what the rules for each of those categories are. So it just depends on what the client is looking for and what you want to offer. If you guys don't match up, don't take it personally. It's totally fine. No two people are going to be the same. So be you, be who you are, and you will have no competition. And by that, I mean, yes, there will be dog trainers around you in your area, but nobody else is going to do exactly the same thing, exactly the same way as you do it. So everybody is going to be unique and different, and you have to find what's comfortable for you, and then your clients will find you based on that. So how would you scale? Well, I suggest that you start by keeping your day job and doing a few training sessions, evenings and weekends, until you build up your clientele, and then go part-time at work. And then eventually, after a few years, go full-time with dog training if that's the choice that you make. That way you don't have to start right from the very beginning out the gates with a huge amount of debt. It also depends on what you want to do, right? If you want to be a trainer that has a facility, awesome, but the cost of having a facility can be quite prohibitive. So there's a lot of trainers. It's quite common for trainers to go to people's homes. So it's a one-on-one experience, which means that your overhead is much, much lower. But at the same time, it also means that it limits what you can offer. It means you can't really do large group classes. It means that you can only do it certain times of the day when they're available. So there are pros and cons to everything, but if you're going to go for a full-sized facility with other employees, that's definitely a larger investment. And personally, I suggest that maybe you do some dog training for a couple of years before you decide to invest the amount of money that would be necessary for a facility. Perhaps Megan and Carla have different perspectives on that, and I would love to have you guys talk about that in a few moments when we get to the Q&A. I'd love to hear your guys' experiences, because you guys have a different way of meeting with your clients, facilities, and different locations, whereas I am strictly a one-on-one private trainer. I go to people's homes, and that's a different scenario. Keep in mind, it takes time. You cannot just open your dog training business and tomorrow have full-time wage. It's, keep it realistic. People need to hear about you first. It needs to, build up some momentum. You build those relationships. I do suggest that you have a website and a Facebook page. Absolute minimum, those two things, because people will Google you. They're going to look up your name. They want to see your picture. They want to see that you're not just a fly-by-night person who's just opened your Facebook page yesterday and only have one picture. So start building it now. Build, a brand for yourself. And even if you don't have a very big fancy website, you can do a fairly simple one through like Squarespace, or I'm not advertising for them specifically, but just find a website where you can put your name, a little bit about you, your training methods, some really cute dog pictures, and then talk about what you specialize in, and then also a way for them to pay you, because if they can pay online before they even call you, isn't that great? Like, you just wake up one morning and your bank account says, bing, money in your account. So, if you can set it up automated, then you can wake up to people in your obedience class, paid, registered, ready to go, rather than taking phone calls, back and forth emails, that kind of thing. You're still going to get that. Granted, I try to get everything automated, but people are still going to call you for clarification. Maybe they have questions, but automate as much as you possibly can. And then generalize and specialize. The reason why I've put that there is to let you know that it's your bread and butter to do basic obedience. That's what everyone's going to call you for. And some problem prevention, like pulling on leash, jumping up on guests when they come over, some pretty simple behavior modification. I kind of group that more into training rather than behavior consultation. It does kind of get into behavior consultation, and of course I recommend you get some experience before you start doing behavior consultations versus training. But teaching a dog not to pull on leash is definitely within the training category, even though to the owner it does feel like a larger problem than just training. So generalize. Your bread and butter is basic obedience. That's what everybody's going to want. Specialize. At the same time as you're generalizing for what most people are going to be calling for, what you're going to make most of your money on, find something that is your niche. What makes you different from the other dog trainer down the road? Because there are a lot of dog trainers, right? You're going to be surrounded by them. So as I said earlier, you're not going to have any competition because nobody's going to be doing the exact same thing as you. So what makes you different? Maybe you are more into dog sports. Maybe you're more into scent detection. Maybe you're more into search and rescue, right? So if you let people know that, you put it on your website, you put pictures on your Facebook of, doing water sports or dock diving or whatever your specialty is, then you're going to get more clients who are also interested in that. So put it out there, and then that's going to attract your clients towards you. So let's talk about licenses, taxes, and legal ramifications. So dog training qualifications, that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about dog training schools. There's also other qualifications that you can get that aren't necessarily a school that you go to. So for example, CPDT KA, which is what I am. I'm a certified professional dog trainer, knowledge assessed through the CCPDT, and they are an independent body that does a test. So it's a knowledge test, and when you pass that, then they give you that those letters to put after your name to demonstrate that you have the knowledge that they expect you would have for being a dog trainer. So that's one of the most common names, or the acronyms you're going to see after people's names in dog training. And what I like about that is it's basically saying we don't care where you got the information from, but you have it. So we're giving you credit for having the information, whether you got it from a book or from a website or from a school. You have the information, you're good to go. Other things like fear-free certified professional. You can take online courses for that. It's another certification that you can pay to take the online courses, and then you get those letters after your name. So that's a nice one to have. There's unlimited letters that you can get after your name if that's what you want. You can basically collect them like Pokemon, but they do have meaning to them. So make sure that you're getting the ones that are meaningful to you and meaningful to your clients. So I guess what I'm bringing this back to is there is no one qualification that you require in order to be a dog trainer in Canada. Okay, so we definitely encourage you to have them, but it's not like there's this one thing that everyone has to apply for and have it in order to legally be a dog trainer. So we do encourage qualifications, a variety of qualifications, but there isn't one single one that you have to have. Dog training license does not exist, so you don't need to worry about getting a dog training license. That kind of loops back into the qualifications. We do definitely want you to have education and qualifications, but a license, not something that exists in Canada. Provincial business license, however, yes. So if you're going to start your own dog training business, so let's say you decide to work for yourself, you start a business, you are going to need to register with the province. You're going to need to get your all of the business things in order. So your name needs to be registered. You'll need to get a GST number. If you are going to be making more than $30,000 a year, then you have to charge GST and remit that to the government as well. So provincial business license, you'll have to go to your province's government website and find out what you need for your particular province, because every province is going to be slightly different. So find out how to get a business license from your province. And then once you have that, you're going to have to go to your municipal website and find out what you have to do for a business license in your municipality. It varies so much. I think we can kind of go through, like maybe myself, Carla, and Megan, we can answer maybe for ourselves what's required for municipal business license. I've lived in about 10 different cities in my life, and every single one of them had different requirements, different fees, different ways of contacting them, different ways of reporting. So I'm afraid I can't give you details on that because it's going to depend on the city you live in. Zoning. Well, that's going to really matter if you have a location, right? So if you have a training facility or a boarding facility, zoning is going to be a little bit of a pain in the bum, because as soon as you say dogs are involved, they're worried about the barking, and then you're stuck in the industrial zone. They won't let you be in the downtown area with general commercial stuff. So decide what it is that you want to offer, and that is going to determine the zoning that you're going to have to make sure that you have the rights to have that business in that zone. Insurance and liability. So in Canada, we don't have LLCs. If you're in the States, you could do an LLC, but in Canada, it's a different process. You can incorporate, you absolutely could do that, but most people when they're first starting out go with sole proprietorship. Again, totally up to you to find out what is the best system to go for, but you definitely want to have it set up as an entity that is going to cover all of your needs to make sure that your liability is covered, and your insurance is going to need to cover all of the services that you offer as well. So if you offer boarding and pet sitting as well as training, you're going to need to make sure that your insurance covers all of that and that they're aware of it. How do you get insurance for dog training? Aha, the CAPDT can help you with that, because you're right, it is very, very hard to find an insurance company that will insure a dog trainer. So we at the CAPDT have 2 insurers that you can choose from, and we can talk a little bit about that if any of you are interested in insurance. And then taxes. Well, if you are going to open your own business, you are going to have to remit taxes as a business. Now, I am definitely not a tax expert. This is something that you're going to have to talk to your, someone who helps you do taxes at the end of the year. But just want to give you some generalities as far as taxes. If you make less than $30,000 a year at dog training in your business, then you are not required by law to collect GST. However, that does not necessarily apply to HST. So if you're in a province that has provincial tax, you might have to collect provincial tax even if you don't have to collect GST. You might have to collect both. You might have them amalgamated as one if it's HST versus PST. Every province is different, so that's going to be very unique to the province you live in. But once you find that out, keep track of it all, keep track of your income and your expenses so that at the end of the year, you can talk to a tax expert who can help you prepare your taxes and remit any that you owe to the government at the end of the year. You can also choose to register for a GST number before you make $30,000 a year. That's totally fine. You can do that. But just keep in mind that if you register for a GST number, you must continue to collect GST and remit that to the government every single year, even if you don't make $30,000. So if you make $20,000 one year and you've collected taxes, oh, sorry, is somebody, you have something to add to it? Nope, okay, all right. So if you make less than $30,000, but you have decided to collect GST, then you still have to collect it and remit it for that $20,000 that you've made that year. The only time you can stop collecting that GST is if you close your business, and you have to officially close your business. So you have to let CRA know that you're no longer in a business and that you're no longer going to be remitting the GST. So just a few things to keep in mind for when you're setting up your the structure of your business. All right. So now that we have done the generalities, let's talk about specifics. All right, so I would love to open this up to Carla and Megan's experiences. The 2 questions that if you guys want to talk about your personal experiences with how you got into dog training, like your path to get there, and what some of the advantages or disadvantages of having a facility versus being a trainer that goes to people's homes might be. Yeah. So let's turn it over to Megan, just because I saw you turn your camera on. So let's have you go first.
Sure. So I started with the local Humane Society, actually. And at the time, I was doing volunteer work and figured out I could actually do a career with dog training and do that. So I've got some feedback, Scarlett. I might need you to mute just while I'm talking. Don't mind. Sorry, thanks. And yeah, and they really helped get me started. There wasn't any schooling to go to at the time or anything. So I kind of did a crash course through them, read a lot of books, got my CPDT KA, and then started with some private training. What I really focused on in the beginning is networking and connecting and really getting out in the industry, and really had a vision of doing something to help dogs. I had a dog at the time that had some challenges. So I had a vision of a facility that could do a little bit more and offer more to dogs to help them. And so it took me quite a while to find a place because I was young and no one wanted anything to do with dogs. So I opened up my first facility in 2008. Like you were speaking about, the thing I love about dog training is that you can build your business as you're doing other things, which is really great. There's not that's not normal everywhere, and it's really easy to do in dog training. So I was able to open a facility with a great client base, which was good. Opened up second facility, and we've just continued to expand since then. So I didn't want to be limited by a community center, even though, you know, renting through a community center or vet clinic or anything like that. And partly was just because I had, you know, a big vision for it. But it's difficult though. It's been a really tough journey. So you're speaking about things just don't pop up, and it's a lot of work. And I think a lot of people see the facilities and think it was really easy, but it's tough. We're caring for living beings. The industry is evolving, growing all the time, but it's been great. So it's been a good path.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Megan. Thanks.
Of course.
All right, Carla.
Hi, everyone. Well, I guess to echo similar to Megan, I started with my own dogs, training them, and I got more dogs. Once you have 2 dogs, it goes to 3 dogs and so on, right? And I was into breeding and initially competing. I competed in obedience first and a little bit of hunting and so on. So I was really a generalist. I was also trained by the Calgary Humane Society. So I did temperament testing for them, which was an invaluable thing. So one thing I'm seeing with new dog trainers is there's a lot of book learning, but you got to be really aware, like that's critically important. But the other critically important piece is the dog handling. So that's where you learn practical things like how not to get bit and how the techniques have to be adapted to big dogs and little dogs, right? And the more different types of ages and breeds of dogs that you work with, that really helps you to know how to help those dogs to succeed. And then just personally, I started noticing, I liked how Scarlett was saying, you know, everyone likes different things. They have a different style, and that's definitely true. So for example, I found out things like, hey, you know, hunting's all right, but I'm okay with hiking too. And so I dropped it, right? I did used to do more online retailing of products, and I've really cut that out. It was because of the growth of Amazon, right? So I can't compete with Amazon. And further, I don't have a passion about that. So just over time, like give yourself permission to notice what dogs really excite you, what you really care about, what you can't leave alone. And for me, that's mainly scent detection. And in addressing the different facility needs, for me, it was kind of dictated by the types of engagements that I was doing. So for example, when I started doing bed bug detection, what that means is that I have to go into other people's homes and commercial properties, including hotels and restaurants. And so what I need to do that safely is to have a buddy system. So some of the people will be involved in lawsuits. To be honest, we see people that are hoarders. We see people with mental illness. We go to homes and farms in the middle of nowhere. And so the policy has to be there's 2 inspectors. For example, one of the things we found is while looking for bed bugs, we found uncontained drugs and bed bugs at the same call. And having 2 inspectors really helped us to be safer. So, you know, bed bug inspections, we wouldn't want them to come to our facility because then they're bringing the bed bugs over. But we have to make sure when we go to their place that it's safe, that we can do the work and give them a great answer that helps them to make decisions. And it has to be safe for us and the dog. So that's a really big thing for us. Safe, and don't bring the bed bugs home with you. So that may be a little bit atypical, but you know, at some point, start thinking about what parts of dog training are your favorites. Because again, Scarlett, you mentioned a straight sit. Every dog needs to sit, or at least 90%, right? Do I care about a straight sit? That's not my passion. And that's really important because if you don't feel the passion, this struggle is going to be less productive for you. Why would you bother, right?
Excellent, you bet. Thank you so much for talking about your experience as well, Carla. That's great. All right, I guess it's my turn to share a little bit about how I got into dog training, and that is that I am kind of the flip side of both Megan and Carla in that I move around a lot. I'm a military spouse, so if I had a facility, I wouldn't be able to be there long enough to make it worth it before having to move again, which is why my business is set up to be very portable, it just moves from city to city on my website. All I need to do is change the location on the map, and that has worked very, very well for me. In fact, being in a military community means that sometimes, like even when I moved to this location that I'm in right now, I had clients even before I moved here because the people I trained in my last military town told their friends who then hired me before I even moved here. So it's, as I said earlier, it's all about word of mouth. People need to trust you. They want to tell their friends about you. So the portability of not having a facility was very important to me. But I also want to be completely transparent about the fact that it also means that I don't make as much money as someone who has a facility would make, right? So it's less overhead, but it's also less income because I can only do the number of sessions in a day that I am available for. So, just think about what your life situation is and how you would like to scale, or if you would like to start small and then scale up from there. There's lots and lots of different paths that you can take for sure. Yeah. All right. So I'm just looking at the chat here, and we're getting some really great information here. We're hearing from Amber, who's had a friend refer her, and we see that there's some experience already in this chat room. We've got Amber has CDI or CTDI, pardon me, as well as canine conditioning, do more with your dog, all kinds of fun stuff. So it sounds like you've been doing this for a while, Amber, and as well as as well as Nina. I see that Nina has some experience being a registered vet tech. So that is a really great asset as well. Awesome. Yes, okay. So before we open it up to questions, is there anything that Carla and Megan would like to add before we open it up to answering questions?
Yes, I forgot to put in the plug, and I should. So another way to get experience with handling a bunch of dogs and training them is if you're in BC and Alberta, there's an urgent need for service dog volunteer homes to help raise the puppies, and you will be trained on ways to complete that training and get a lot of experience, and you'll help save someone's life, potentially make a huge difference. It's a huge time investment too, but if you're looking for different ways to acquire dog handling experience, look out for service dog organizations who desperately need volunteers.
That is such a fantastic way to get experience, Carla. You're right. I had a wonderful experience doing some puppy raising for an organization in Saskatchewan about 3 years ago. I was there volunteering for puppy raising, and you're right. What a great way to get the company of a delightful puppy. You're doing training. You're going to training classes with them. You're learning about handling skills. You get the company of a puppy for 6 months, 8 months, whatever the contract is, and then yes, it's a little bit sad when you have to give them back, but tears of joy when you see the good that they're doing and that they go to their next family. So yes, it's a very, very beneficial thing to do. If you've got an organization in your area, be a puppy raiser. Absolutely. Yeah, you got it. Okay. So now I would like to open it up to questions so that we can answer some questions you guys might have. I'd also like to point out that earlier in the chat, if you just scroll right up to the chat, to the beginning, the third thing in the chat is a link to a document. It's a PDF that lists some Canadian dog training schools. So if you're curious about a school that you can go to either online or in person, all of the details are on that form. So you can click that and download it, check it out, see if there's something that catches your eye. or pass that along to someone else who asks you how you got into dog training, and you can let them know that that's a way they can get into it as well. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the share. We are going to go back to everybody's pictures here and ready for questions. No questions from the floor? Really? Okay. Was I able to address the tax situation sufficiently for all of the different provinces for the people who are here? Let's do a little survey. What province is everybody in right now? I'm in Ontario, and Carla and Megan are both in Calgary, and I believe Delia is in Calgary as well, if I'm not mistaken. Nina is in BC. Excellent. All right. Okay, so Nina says it's the business side that she would like help with. Okay, all right. And Delia is in Alberta. Yeah, very good. And Nina is in BC. Great. Okay. And Delia, you're in Sherwood Park. Okay, yes. My apologies. I knew it was either Calgary or Edmonton and Sherwood Park. I guess maybe I shouldn't lump that in with Edmonton, but there we go. So excellent. Good to know where everybody is located. All right.
Scarlett, a request is for knowing more about insurance from Delia.
Oh, excellent. Okie dokie. Oh, wow. And we also have somebody on the call who is living in Dubai right now. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. The only downside about that is that I do not have any information on how you would become a dog trainer in Dubai. But if you are planning on returning to Canada or working here, then we could be a little bit more applicable for your situation. But we're certainly happy to have you join us on the call. Or if you want to take some of the informational resources that we have by joining the CAPDT. Always great to learn new things. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we are talking about insurance now because that is the question that Delia has. So there are two insurers that we have as our member benefits for the CAPDT. So if you're a member of the Canadian Association of Professional Dog Trainers, you will get a discount at ProFur and ProLink. So those are the two different companies. One is called ProFur, F-U-R, and the other one, ProLink, L-I-N-K. Those two provide insurance for dog trainers. Now they do offer ever so slightly different coverage. I mean, it's going to be comparable in most ways, except I can give you an example from my personal experience with both of those companies, is that while ProLink was about $49 cheaper per year, so it was a $49 savings for me, but they didn't cover me being a pet first aid instructor, whereas ProFur does. So if you're a pet first aid instructor, you might want to go with ProFur. But if you do not need that, then you might want to save the $49 and go with ProLink. So that's that, you know, get a quote from both, see which one suits your needs best, read the policy, know what's covered, know what isn't covered, and then that way it will help you make your choice. I know that the next question is probably going to be how much is it? And that's going to depend on how much you train during the year, your income, because they ask what your last year's income was. And it also depends on what services you offer. If you offer training for Schutzhund or protection training, it's going to be a very different cost than if it's puppy training and basic obedience. So keep in mind what you offer is going to change it. I have, like I said, an additional fee for being a pet first aid instructor. So mine is just a teeny bit higher than it would be if I wasn't. But just to give you guys a ballpark, and again, like this is not a quote or anything, it may not apply to you, but for me, when I was making less than $10,000 a year, the insurance was $500 a year. When I made more than $10,000, it went up to $1,000 a year. So that's how the company, explained it to me. They were like, hey, more than 10,000, it's not a hobby anymore. It's your full-time job. Price goes up. If you're just doing it, a few clients a month and you're under 10,000, you could expect to have a smaller bill when it comes to insurance. But again, totally dependent on your individual circumstances. So that's just ballpark figures. All right, so I see another question here about what sort of contracts do you have clients sign? And then insurance. Okay, so I just maybe a thumbs up if I was able to answer the very specific questions about insurance, or if we want to revisit insurance again. Everybody, because I know the question was specifically for Delia, so did that answer what you were looking for?
Mostly, when I got a quote, because I don't teach very much, it seemed like every last penny that I would have left would be going to insurance.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how to balance that.
Oh, and I am so sorry, but I'm afraid that kind of is the way insurance works, is that they will, like I said, $500. If you make one penny that year, it's $500. So I feel ya. It is, it's very frustrating that, if you make $700 in a whole year and 500 of it goes to insurance, it kind of feels like, why bother? And that might be the case. Yeah, if you are not doing enough to make it worth your while, you might want to consider that maybe either do more hours of training so you make more at it to make it more worth it for you, or perhaps you just do it as a volunteer basis so that it's not for pay. Well, that's a personal decision you're going to have to make. But I am very sorry that that's the case. Sorry, but that is in line with what the expectation for cost is. For contracts for clients to sign. Okay, it is definitely recommended that you have a waiver when you have a new client, like when they register with you, have a registration form that has a waiver on it. Everybody's is going to be different based on province, of course, and it is recommended that you have a lawyer look over it to make sure that it is applicable to what you offer and to your province. I know that's not terribly helpful to just say, oh, we'll talk to a lawyer about it. So just to give you a little bit of a place to start, in the members only benefits, there is a sample template for a waiver in there. And then, you would then take that to your lawyer and adjust as needed. But that's kind of a starting place that you can use that template just to kind of get the idea of what you would want to have in your waiver, but that is by no means complete for what each and every person would need. So it still needs to be checked over by someone in your province. So what kind of things would be on it? Again, just off the top of my head, this is not a list of the things that would be legally required, but you definitely want to touch on things like vaccinations. Are the dogs coming to your facility up to date on vaccinations, and which ones? You also want to touch on what to do or what would happen if a dog behaves aggressively, and they may not even be aggressive, right? They might just jump on somebody out of excitement and cause injury. They might fall over or get scratched. So you want to have something in there about, if the person is injured attending a class, that you're not liable. You'd want to have some language in there about if your dog is not suited to the class that they've registered for, that it's up to the trainer to then, decide what class is most appropriate for that dog. So, if somebody has a dog that is, has stranger danger and can't function in a group obedience class, you want to be able to have that in your waiver where you could then talk to the client and say, oh, I think you would be a better candidate for one-on-one private training or something like that. So you want to have that covered. And also a photo release too. So if you want to take cute pictures for your Instagram, for your Facebook, 95% of my clients absolutely love to see the pictures. They want to be in them. They're like, yeah, take pictures of my puppy, put it on Facebook. Here's my Instagram. They love it. There is a very few people who maybe are camera shy and they say, pictures of my dog is fine, but no pictures of me. That's fine. Just keep that in mind so you don't take pictures of their face. And then there are few and far between, but there are some who just do not want cameras anywhere near them, anywhere near their dog, and that's fine. Just respect that's their choice and their situation, but you're going to have to remember which ones it is, right? So if you have someone in a group class that doesn't want their photo taken, then that entire class is not going to get those photos, those candid shots. But you can do graduation photos individually, one-on-one, and then they can, have that photo at the end. And so it's just going to depend on that, but definitely have them sign the photo release at registration, so that if you do have photos and they're really cute and you put them on your website, that they don't come back and say, hey, I want some money for that picture on your website. So you want to make sure that you have that covered as well. Yes, Carla, do you have another thing that you can add?
Well, no, I was going to say one of the questions is about workman's compensation that I don't think has been discussed so far. Do you have any thoughts on that? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yes, there we go. Okay. No, we have not touched on workman's compensation, and that is fully because I have never worked for another person as a dog trainer. I've always had my own business, so I have not had to deal with workers' compensation in this format. I mean, I've had other jobs where I had it, but it wasn't through dog training. So, Megan or Carla, have you had any experiences with that?
We are actually exempt in Alberta. I don't know if that's across Canada. It's expensive. And so we've got other things. We've got some different type of insurance that will help team. If something happens, we take care of them. That's just sort of a cost benefit to us. It's really expensive. We have quite a large team, so it's expensive to bring it in. But I know some places and some industries, it's mandated that you have to have it. So, and I'm not sure if that's at a provincial level. I think it is, because we just went through it on some stuff with the Alberta government. So just check out if it's a requirement, if you must have it. And then if it's something where you don't need it, you just need to make sure you have some good things in place and a good contingency plan if something does happen then. Because the nice thing about it, if something happens, it takes care of, the cost for the team member, if they have to be off work, all of that stuff. So you just have to make sure you have a good plan in place for it.
Along the same lines, the way that I've gotten around it with a couple of different businesses, including a scent detection training, is if you don't have a facility and actually you don't have employees because you're like a freelancer with a corporation, you're self-employed, but you're not actually on staff, then again, you don't need to pay into pensions and workman's comp. So there's no benefits when you're a consultant for a corporation. If you're staff at a facility, that's where the benefits have to be considered depending on your location.
Yeah, you bet. And just to add to that, how you just explained it there, Carla, I've always been a sole proprietor, so it is an option for me to opt into paying for for EI, but I personally have opted out of that. So that is the choice that I made as my own employer, but I'm not, but yeah, I don't have other employees, so that I don't do payroll and I don't have, payroll benefits to pay. But it also means that if something happens to me, I'm SOL, right? So those are the pros and the cons, right? And it depends on what situation you're in. If you would be okay if you broke your leg and you couldn't work for 6 to 8 weeks, would you be okay? If so, maybe you don't need workman's comp, but if you have employees or if you wouldn't be okay for 6 weeks, then you might want to do that. Okay, it looks like we are covering the info that Nina was looking for. Okay, excellent. I'm glad that we answered some questions there. Yeah. Oh, and I'm seeing some other stuff in the chat about Law Depot has some templates. So yeah, you can definitely use templates, but just be aware that it's not necessarily going to apply to you specifically unless you have a lawyer in your area look it over.
There was one I saw, Scarlett, a question. It was, what if you have interesting classes, but not enough people to run them? Like there's 2 people, and so you can't commit to running space. So what do you do about that not enough people to run a class?
Yeah, that's tough. And maybe I can get Carla and Megan to chime in on it because you guys have facilities. So group classes is probably much more of a recurring thing for you guys. I'll just tell you what my experiences are, is that I in the past have rented space through doggy daycare, where I was allowed to use their space for training on evenings and weekends. Worked out great. And yeah, there were some times when I had smaller classes. There's times when I had 2-3 people, and by the end, this is when I used to do 8-week courses. By week 6, I was down to like maybe 1 person, and then maybe by week 8, nobody finished, right? So that was happening. I typically would have classes of about 4 to 6 people. Usually that was about typical for me when I was in Edmonton. So that was manageable. But yeah, I definitely out here, I'm in rural Ontario. So I'm running an outdoor class right now with 2 people in it, and both of them called in sick last week. So 0 people. It happens, which is why I have chosen to do most of my stuff one-on-one. So it's private. And then that way, if they're sick, we just reschedule. You know, that's how I've gotten around that, because I found with group classes, it was like 2-3 people. And by the end, everybody had, moved on and done other things, and they weren't finishing the classes. So I guess I didn't really answer how to fix that in a class situation, other than make the classes shorter, like maybe instead of 6 weeks, 4 weeks, or perhaps I've heard of a way of doing it as rolling enrollment, a rolling intake. So if you always run basic obedience classes every Tuesday at 7 p.m., then maybe someone who missed a class last month, then they might, pick it back up a month later and then pick up from there. That might be one way to get around that, if you just keep it on a rolling basis. But yeah, I'll open it up to Carla and Megan, and maybe they have some ideas as well.
Sure, I can offer some insight into this, because I think this is pretty common for a lot of trainers. First thing is really knowing what your break even is on classes. So I knew for each class how many students I needed to break even on it at least, and that was my minimum to run the class. We got pretty creative with this. So one of the things is networking, so getting out to pet related businesses, vets, anything you can think of, and offer them some kind of incentive to their clients. It's a great way to get clients coming into your classes. Keep in good communication with them, let them know what's coming up. We also work a lot with rescue groups. So some of the times, if I only had a few dogs and I thought it was too small of a class, we would see about getting fosters in to fill the spots. So it was a good way to fill the spot without, it's not necessarily the money coming in, but it made it a bit easier. So what Scarlett was talking about, when things kind of dip down and you only have the odd student. Sorry, Scarlett, do you mind muting again? I've got some feedback. I'm not sure it's going through to everyone else, but thank you. And so it was a really great way. One thing that we started in Calgary years ago, which has become quite common within the rescue groups, is we offered within adoption classes. And so what happened, we were dealing with a lot of returns and just some challenges that could have been prevented with some training. So it was a really good fit. So what we did is we offered a discounted rate to the adopters, but it was included in their adoption package. So when the dog was adopted, these classes were included, and then the rescue group would pay us when they registered for the classes. So that was a great way to bring clients in. Again, it's discounted, but we often were able to turn them into clients in other ways. So it was a great way to acquire new ones. The other thing that we did was package, because we would find that it wasn't too hard with puppy or basic obedience classes, but it was kind of more of our specialty classes or getting people to continue. So we offered packages up front. So the individual classes would cost so much. If they bought the package, it would be a bit of a reduced price. And we found that really helped with that retention and getting more people in. You can also just delay if you know your minimum, but it can be tough. I know that can be really tough on scheduling and everything, but make sure you give yourself good leeway to get people in the classes. I like the idea that Scarlett had with shortening too. We did that and it helped. We used to do 8-week way back in the beginning and really shrunk that down, and it helped just with that turnaround. So yeah, often it's just kind of being creative at getting them in the door, but I find that networking and getting stuff out, you can offer little tiny incentives. Like it might be, a free bag of treats, or it could be, a quick little Q&A or different things like that that you could do to just give them the incentive to sign up for your classes, and just getting out to others in the network with different pet related businesses really helps.
So in addition to that, some different ideas on how to diversify to make up that difference. One thing I've had some luck with recently is I get the facility where I'm renting and the students to sign to say it's non-refundable. But what makes it better for them is they not only get classes in person, there's an online program that they can ask questions in that course. So for example, I recently had a student who had a hip replacement, and she let me know, and she said, you know, I can't make it to the rest of the classes, but I'm looking forward to learning online. So, so there's that hybrid mode. A lot of people are using Facebook groups for dog training classes, which is like a free online platform you can use. The disadvantage is people have to be logged into Facebook. So they have to, you know, not everyone's on Facebook. Not everyone is willing to do it, but it's a free option. And in that guide section, you could put out what you would do in every week of class and answer questions there and get some buzz and so on. Some other things I've heard of was a wait list. So I know a trainer in a rural area of Alberta. What she does is people go on the list, and when she gets 4 or 6, that's when she runs the class. You can rent facilities by the hour. So when I was just starting out, I was giving try nose work for $20. People really like that. So it's a one-time thing for $20. And I would rent 1 hour a week. And then at least I was breaking even. But like to Scarlett's point, it takes a while to get rolling and get the word of mouth. So it's definitely not lucrative at first. You have to give a lot of stuff in order to get your name out there and the trust out there. And consider in your cost what the cost of fuel is. And also for you to know that, at least for me, summers have always been hardest to fill because people travel. So just give yourself a break. If you're starting now, you're not choosing the easiest time of year. I anticipate it would be easier come September after school start. And I'm curious to hear from you guys. Is that what you find also, summer is really light?
Yeah, I find that I can look at a calendar and I can know how busy I'm going to be month to month based on the 17 years that I've been doing different types of classes, is that it's busiest. It kind of goes along with the school year, right? So it's September, right after the kids go back to school. And then nobody trains in December. So December is a write-off. You may as well go on holidays because nobody's training then. And then mid-January and February picks up a lot because people have now got a paycheck right after, like just January 1st, nobody has any money. They spent it all on Christmas. By about the 15th of January, they've got another paycheck. They're starting to look for dog training classes. February is pretty busy. And then Easter hits. Everybody falls off for Easter. And then, summer holidays, very hit and miss. I have had some years where, strangely, August, hugely popular for obedience classes in August. I guess maybe people didn't travel that time. I can't explain why that one. That's a little bit of an outlier, but yes, it definitely goes in cycles, and they're predictable cycles. So you can schedule your future years based on what you've had for that in the past. Yeah.
That's a similar timeline to what we get too for them. And then knowing that cycle and where it goes seasonal, in the summer, we actually amp up all of our specialty training, and we do little bursts of training. So we do clinics and workshops. We lighten the load a little bit on our ongoing training, but we really amp up getting the dogs out in the world. You know, being in Canada with winter, it's not so easy through the winter months. So, and we do these short little clinics and just really amp that up. And we find that helps because then it's easier for people just to do a 1 or 2 class or 3 hours on a weekend or something. And that helps kind of fill the gaps.
The other thing that I did quite frequently when it was quiet, like in December and over the summer, is I also offered in-home boarding. So I wasn't able to do it for many dogs, but I was able to have up to 2 dogs allowed in my home because that was the regulations for where I was living. And then that way it was like a boutique experience for their dog to stay in a home. And then I'd send them lots and lots of pictures, little cute videos. There are little apps you can get so that they have musical backgrounds, and they just absolutely love it because then they're booking for Christmas before they've even finished their summer vacation. So that's a really nice thing to offer your clients if you're looking for a way to supplement your income. However, not everyone is in a position to be able to take 2 or 3 dogs in on a rotating basis. And yeah, you might be in an apartment and that might not work for you. So just letting you know that it's an additional service that your clients are probably interested in if you're able to offer that. Yes, I see in the chat here, rover.com is kind of like Airbnb for dogs. Very true. Yep. So it's essentially, that's the concept. And then you can just do it when you have time or when you're, looking to supplement your income, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your full business all the time. The other nice thing about rover.com is that the insurance is included with rover.com. So you don't have to have insurance if that's all you're going to be doing, if you just work for rover.com. But the downside is they take 20% off the top. So that's what pays for your insurance. So maybe for some of the situations where the $500 in insurance and you're only making, $1,000, $2,000 a year, maybe rover.com is a really good way to get your insurance covered, and they take 20% off the top for that. But yeah, that's a way around it. All right. Well, it looks like perhaps we have answered all of the questions. Holy smokes. Good job, you guys. Well, if there's anything else that you guys would like to bring up, you're certainly welcome to now. I'll give you a moment to put it in the chat if you want to start another topic. But otherwise, it looks like we are looking to wrap up this Q&A. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nina. It was great to have you here on the call. Thank you. Yes. All right. So we can wrap it up, and you can always, talk to us at the CAPDT. If you're not already a member, you can join as either an associate or a professional member. We have lots of resources there. The whole idea is that it's a community to support you in your dog training journey. If you are looking to get into that, we'd love to have you with the CAPDT. And if you're already with us, glad to have you, and you can ask us questions anytime. Well, thanks so much, everybody. I'm going to say goodnight to everyone, and we'll end the call there. Thanks. Lovely to see everyone. Have a good night.